as Donald Trump's first foreign test failure. So just who is Trump trying to appeal to with his message last night? Our political analyst Brian Sobel is here. So who was he reaching out to?
Well, I think he thought he was reaching out to a lot of undecideds and some Democrats, but the speech really spoke, as it has in the past, to the Republican base. The difference is that he had just returned from Mexico and an important meeting with the head of state of another country.
Right.
And so that combination is what made yesterday different than some of the rhetoric we've heard in the past.
And it was a much quieter Trump that we saw standing there on the stage in Mexico. What do you make of those two sort of contrasts?
Well, I thought, first of all, in the kind of head-to-head of the Mexican president and Donald Trump, he looked very presidential. As a matter of fact, he kind of dwarfed the Mexican president in terms of his stage presence, which I thought was interesting to see. And then he comes back, to Arizona and does an important policy speech. I think on the whole, it was just a very good day for Donald Trump, and we're going to see it, by the way, Heather, played out in the polling. I think we're going to see.
So?
I think we're going to see a little bump for him.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about something that he mentioned. He sort of stood consistent with his law and order philosophy, if you will, and he vowed zero tolerance toward criminals living in the U.S. And he made mention of that very controversial case in San Francisco. Kate Steinle, of course, walking along the Embarcadero, and the accused suspect is an illegal immigrant deported 5 times previously.
Yes, and he's brought up that case before as a good example of the problem. And but what he did yesterday that was different was he actually had a plan. Now, you may not agree with the plan, and a lot of it sounds...
You mean the task force?
No, the 10-point plan about how he's going to deal with illegal immigration, which includes that component, but also still building the wall. 5,000 border agents, had all kinds of detail in it, and even though much of it can't be accomplished very easily, he, for the first time, really laid out a blueprint, and that's been missing in the past. And so whether you agree with him or don't agree with him, and whether much of that sounded like other things he said, and it did, he still was able to package it pretty well yesterday.
Okay, and what do you make, though, of what Hillary Clinton said and her criticism of Trump in Mexico, and then also the speech?
I thought it was an opportunity to pass on it, really. I thought, he was the one who immediately answered the call of the president of Mexico, got on his plane and went down there.
Do you think she will follow suit?
Oh, she has to. But I think it said something about maybe how quickly he's willing to respond to things, maybe too quickly, diplomatically, because diplomacy is a lot about waiting out certain events. But he jumped on a plane, took the invitation, and went down there, and I thought he really grabbed the news.
My final question is going to be on just who he's trying to reach, because a Gallup poll shows that 65% of Americans favor a path for immigrants who are living illegally in the U.S. to remain if they meet certain requirements. Again, that's 65%. That seems to be at odds with what Trump is saying.
It is, but I think those people who are among that 65% want to see something happen, and maybe the specifics are where you kind of get into the argument. And Trump, of course, has since the beginning been very out front about what he thinks ought to happen, and I think the thing that would be shared by that 65% and Trump is that there needs to be a pathway to citizenship. That's where they find agreement.
All right. Yes. We'll have to see exactly what happens with the polling in a couple of days.
Oh,
all right, thanks, Brian Sobel, our political analyst today. Ted?
Okay, thanks.